Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon Gourami tank. We're in the middle of doing a feeding, and I decided I would get my camera set up. If you can see off to the right, you can see my striped Raphael wiggling around in the cave, but further to the right, if you look closely, I hope it's coming out on camera, I can't really see because of the way the tripod's set up. Several of my coolie loaches in there are sort of writhing around together. It almost looks like the images you see of like when garter snakes first come out in the springtime, and they're all sort of writhing around in a pile. It's 3 or 4 coolie loaches doing that in there. And so I've already got some sinking shrimp pellets on the bottom, and I already put some flake food in, and I'm hoping the striped Raphael will come out and about. It is a bit early in the day, but I had something on my mind, so I wanted to shoot some video about it, and this is going to be it. I've spoken recently about pristine water, and I talk to people all the time. I have almost 3,000 videos out there now, so you can imagine I get a lot of comments throughout the day when I check my notifications and whatnot. And mostly newer fish keepers ask me a lot of questions regarding water quality, whether it's to do with the nitrogen cycle and how much nitrates are building up in the tank, or whether it is just basic water chemistry. They're worried about the pH, or they're worried about the hardness, and they're testing for carbonate hardness. And believe me, I've been there and I've done that, because when I got started in the hobby, I, like a lot of people, were sort of led to believe that fish were these hyper delicate, animals that if you looked at them too hard, the shock could kill them. And, there's just a lot of really misleading information out there. Fish keeping is not that complicated and challenging, and a lot of people tend to make it sound a lot harder than it is. And in fact, what I found, what I was doing, and what I suspect a lot of other people do, is they kill fish by, and I did this myself, I killed fish by trying too hard to achieve perfection. I did water changes every day trying to get the nitrates down to a certain mysterious level, because honestly 40 parts per million is a totally arbitrary number. That's just, I'm not even sure where it comes from, but it's a completely arbitrary number. There's no science anywhere that suggests that 40 parts per million is some significant shifting point in how nitrates affect our fish. It's, again, just totally arbitrary number, and yet people rely on it like it's chiseled in granite of the way you must keep your fish. And so I did a lot of work that was unnecessary trying to keep my fish alive, and I wound up probably killing more of them than I ever would have kept alive by leaving well enough alone. So the thing that I was thinking about, and this is slightly related but kind of unrelated, is when you're thinking about fish living in these pristine environments and they can't be exposed to anything, I always, it always makes me smile when I would shoot the videos of me going down the street and catching the fish in the stream or whatever, and everybody would talk about how pristine the water is and how beautiful it is and everything. My first thought is we're standing right next to a road. Where do you think that rainwater goes when it rains on the road? Do you know what's on roads? This little stream runs right behind a Walmart parking lot. I'm sorry, not a Walmart. The Walmart's on the other side of the road. A Weiss grocery store parking lot, little mini mall shopping center. It runs right past a golf course. It runs right through 2 new housing communities. And, there's dead animals in the street, and just a lot of stuff builds up in gutters and stuff. And all that stuff just gets washed into these streams. Whether that's the grime from our brake dust and grease and oil that drip out of our cars, antifreeze. It may not be a lot, but it's there. I certainly wouldn't drink water out of the gutter. That's far from pristine water. And yet it runs right into my little stream across the street, and that's what those fish live in. And they're not these hyper delicate little animals. You bouncing the parameters of the tank around trying to chase this perfect number of the perfect amount of water hardness or the perfect pH or whatever, that's going to be more shocking and stressful to the fish than to just, if they're doing fine, just leave them alone. We all obviously want to try to get fish that are reasonably within the parameters they should be. If you've got really soft water, don't go buy African cichlids and say, they'll be fine, But, if that's the case, if you've got really soft water, then if you buy fish that can deal with moderately soft to soft water and your fish are doing fine, that you don't have to chase that perfect number of pH. You don't have to chase that perfect number of carbonate hardness, or whatever it says when you look it up on Fish Base or Seriously Fish, and it says it has to be between this degree and that degree. My water is 0 degrees hardness, and at best it may get up to 2 or 3 degrees carbonate hardness. I have I've got almost no buffering capacity at all in my water. Again, I have 0 hardness. The only reason I've got any stability whatsoever is from the sodium ions that are in my water from my water softening system. So most fish are a lot more adaptable than people would give them credit for. And again, most fish also have been bred into the hobby. Fewer and fewer fish these days are wild-caught fish that came straight from some remote Amazon tributary or something that's never seen city water in its life. Most fish are born and bred in city water, and they have been for the last 1,000 generations. And so angelfish don't need the same kind of water that their ancestors needed when they were back in the Amazon River. You can put you can have an angelfish do just fine in 12 degrees hardness or whatever. There's tons of people out there that have angelfish in reasonably or fairly hard water when they're, in theory, an angelfish is one step away from a discus as far as that soft water needs and so on and so forth. But that's only if you catch them wild in the Amazon. That's just not the way angelfish are anymore. And that's, again, that's the case with most fish. It's just that the hobby, again, makes it seem like if you don't do everything exactly right, if you don't do your water changes exactly at this point, or if you let the nitrates get above that point, or whatever these things that they make them sound so absolute and definite, like bad things will happen if you don't do this. Maybe over time it would. Maybe over time if you had a fish that was in water that was too soft for it. Again, I always liken it, or I always think about it in terms of, okay, maybe the fish's maximum lifespan might be 10 years, and because I didn't keep it in perfect water, maybe I'll only get 9 years out of it. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Some people might. Some people might feel that if it should live 10 years, then they'll do everything they possibly can to get it to live that 10 years. The chances of it actually living that long anyway and not dying of some other completely unrelated thing that has nothing to do with anything except, genetics or a freak accident. It's just, again, I don't lose sleep over stuff like that. There's this idea of chasing perfection is just no longer there for me. But I got there in the long run. I worked my way there. I started where I think most people start, is seeking that perfection, and I learned the hard way. So if my experience is of any value to anybody, then I would definitely say relax a little bit and enjoy the hobby more and stress about it a lot less, and you will probably have a lot more success in your hobby as well. So there you go. No striped Raphael tonight for us, but I feel like I'm talking in circles at this point, rambling around. And so we're going to go ahead and just get on with it and say have a good night. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Hope you enjoyed that. And don't forget, of course, this is my 55-gallon Gourami tank. So thanks again. I'll see you real soon in the next one.